I couldn't watch it. I never can watch it.
All right, welcome everyone. We call the meeting to order, and we are pleased to have Richard White, who's the pastor of Christ Community Church Montreat, and my pastor, here to have the invocation for us. So, right ahead, Richard, let's stand.
God, our Heavenly Father, we thank you that you are a giving God, and you have given every good and perfect gift that we enjoy, from the breath we draw to the town we live in. Lord, you have given gifts to these council members, and we thank you, Lord, for the gifts of wisdom and leadership that you have blessed them with, and Lord, how you have blessed this town through them. And we want to ask, oh God, that you would pour your blessing upon each one of them, Lord. Bless them in their homes. Bless them in their businesses. Bless them, Lord, now in their deliberations as they decide matters for our town here. Give them wisdom that they need. But Lord, the blessing of the gifts you've given, Lord, may those come to the forefront. And Lord, indeed bless this town in which we live. We thank you for the gift of Black Mountain, where we get to call home. Lord, thank you for these who gathered with petitions and concerns that they're going to raise. And we would ask, Lord, for the blessing of your peace upon our town and upon this meeting. And Lord, where there are disagreements, we pray that, Lord, there will be a coming to wise discernment and decision. Lord, some of our council members will not be here in a few months, and we thank you for those that have been elected, and pray even for them, Lord, your blessing, your gifting of them with all that they need, Lord, to help manage this town and to lead in ways that lead to our ultimate peace and joy and comfort as a people in this community. But Lord, as all things are from your hand, so we return our thanks to you. Again, pray your great blessing upon this meeting and these who lead, and bless our town. Through Christ our Lord we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Richard. Pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You can be seated. Before we get started, I have just a couple of announcements. First of all, congratulations to Council Member-elect Berry, who's with us this evening. Also, Mayor-elect Sobel, who I don't believe is with us this evening, but congratulations to him as well. And I wanted to offer my appreciation to Council Member and Vice Mayor Ryan Stone. Ryan, has it been 11 years?
It only feels like it. No, it's been 9.
Been 9?
And I appreciate the opportunity that I've had serving with you, because we've done it together.
We've done 9 together, haven't we?
Yes.
It does seem like only 9 years ago, doesn't it? So anyway, it's great. But congratulations to Ryan. It's been great serving with you, and hope you take some much needed and deserved time off to be with your young family and enjoy them, and that's wonderful. And, congratulations to Councilmember Christie. I think you're still in the lead, aren't you?
As far as I know.
Yeah, but congratulations to you, Bill. I have just a brief announcement, and there are a few copies of this that were available, but this is something I really wanted to pass along to the council members. I had worked on this a few months back, and I just thought it was helpful information that if you find it helpful after you have a chance to look through it, Josh can keep it updated for you. But what you have is, of course, a little worksheet on top, and I'll take about 30 seconds to explain this. A little worksheet on top that compares the 2 or 3 numbers that I think are important for us. And then behind it are just the applicable pages from various annual reports, comprehensive annual financial reports that back up these numbers. And so what you have general fund, doesn't include, water or golf course. Interesting, it stays fairly consistent, and then you got a big pop up in the budget number. Well, those are grant monies. And you can go back and look, the big one going back, I think it's between 19 and 20, maybe between 18 and 19, was the economic development money. And then there's just various grants. One year there were just a bunch of small ones, but it still exceeded, well over $1 million. So there's the property tax numbers, and you can see they stayed pretty consistent outside. If you look at fiscal year 21, that's when you had a revaluation, and council adopted, as you recall, the revenue neutral tax rate. So you've got a total increase in revaluation time of 8%, and that does factoring in the revenue neutral rate. And other than that, you're just seeing growth of new construction and transactions. And lastly, you have the installment notes, and those are basically the long-term debt that we look at when we're doing budgets and so forth. And you can see those numbers, they change and move up and down. We bought the public service building, and you can look at the detail there because the various notes are laid out in the financial statements and they're attached. So I think you might find this helpful, especially as you move toward budget time, because these are kind of your basic numbers that that you all control. So and this will be part of the minutes of the meeting for the public if you want to take a look at it. So thank you for that. And just a reminder for all council members that if any item on the agenda, if you have a financial or even a perceived financial interest, please just speak out, and we'll resolve that if something comes to mind in the meeting. We do have a conflict. Council member Patiller has a conflict with agenda item. Where are we? Agenda item. Which one is it?
I think it's 8A.
8A, Mayor Harris.
8A. Okay, I'm sorry, forgive me. 8A, and council member Patiller has a financial interest involved with that easement, and he will not be participating in the deliberation nor voting should council take a vote on that item. He will recuse himself from that. And we do not have the life-saving award this evening, is that right?
Correct.
And because I couldn't make it, couldn't be here. And it's a good story. I would share it with you, but I think we should keep it as a surprise. So we're off to citizen comments, and we have Frank Capelli. And if you would, name, address, and you have 3 minutes.
Okay. All right, so I've got my helpers. Come on up here, boys. Good evening, Town Council. My name's Frank Capelli. I'm currently a member on the Recreation and Parks Commission. It's great to meet you guys all again in person. I know we've met at least one time before. Over the past couple months, you've probably seen a couple of my emails get sent over to you. First of all, I want to make sure you're all getting those emails because I know that I can send some and they probably go in the spam folder. But I want to personally thank Councilman Hay. Thank you for responding to each one of my emails. I really appreciate that. I also want to acknowledge Councilman Hay for attending the Fall Recreation Festival at Veterans Park earlier this month. I know that it was a just great opportunity for the folks that have kids in the community see you there and get out there. It was a great time. We're really sorry to miss the rest of you all. It was very wet, but all the kids had a really fun time. I also want to acknowledge 2 town employees who I just believe should be recognized for their ability to work with the community. First of all, Jamie Matthews. I could sit up here all night and talk about the value that he brings to the town and what he does. That gets in the way, though, of just talking about his character and how good of a person he is. Thank you for accepting the sincerest apologies from Babe Ruth Baseball and for willing to work with us moving forward. We very much appreciate that, and thanks for everyone in the department. Really, just really wanted to recognize Jamie. I also want to recognize Josh Harold in regards to the basketball hoop situation. That is one of the things that I had sent you guys an email about. Another just nod to Doug Hay as well, because he facilitated a great conversation with Josh. I feel like we've got a great, strong step forward when it comes to basketball in Black Mountain. So, Josh, thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. I just know moving forward, we're taking the right steps in order to get a basketball league run by the town. I know Josh has assured me we're going to talk with the previous insurance provider, see if they're going to allow us to still continue to use the previous hoops. Now, I understand the initial issue with basketball was some safety concerns regarding those hoops. I know Josh has let me know that Josh Henderson is currently in the process of ordering 2 replacement basketball hoops that we budgeted in order to fix some of the safety issues from the past. Now, in previous conversations with the Rec and Parks Director, I understand that we've used 3 basketball courts in the past.
Excuse me just a second, Frank.
Yeah.
He's got 20 seconds.
Okay. That means that we actually need 6 basketball hoops in order to run the same basketball program that we've run in the past. Right now, I know we've allocated and we budgeted 2. We need 4 more to make that happen. I'm asking you here today, and I know that money doesn't grow on trees. Not having those hoops, though, was the reason why the town doesn't have a recreation basketball program anymore. I really appreciate that we're in the process of running those 2, and we're talking about potentially still going with those old ones, so we can at least have a basketball program.
Your time's
Okay.
expired.
You've got it right here.
Thank
buddy.
you.
So
Your
Leo,
time's expired.
I know Leo's next on the list, so he's going to read the next.
Oh, okay, got you.
Yeah. Now, and I apologize, and I appreciate that. You're right here, and can you speak into here so everyone can hear you? Is that right?
The pandemic has been rough on everyone, but for us parents, the nightmare continues and will for the rest of our kids' lives. If anyone read the most recent National Assessment of Educational Progress report, you would be as alarmed by how significantly our kids' math and reading levels have decreased as I am. Then on top of that, the town canceled the rec basketball league. It's again now been 3 years since the town hasn't had a basketball league. The town no longer offers a flag football league for kids. Smart Start soccer for the youngsters. At the end of the day, I am begging you on behalf of the children at Black Mountain to budget some funds to fix hoops so we can run a safe league. Fill the courts at Cragmont so kids actually will play on them again. Outstall outfield fences at the baseball games so soccer balls stop getting kicked into the baseball fields during games. Install PA equipment so we can have the baseball games announced. Set aside some space so we can actually still have and run a youth football program. We have a lot of needs in this town, I get it, but if there is one group that has not had a voice in a long time, it's the youth of Black Mountain. Even though they might not pay taxes, I ask that you consider that they do.
Thank you, Leo. Thank you. Sean Sloan.
Sean Sloan, 115 3rd Street, Black Mountain. Thank you for the time. First, I'd like to thank Mayor Harris for his service to the town. I think he's really, I think he is a dedicated public servant. He's always treated me with respect and really appreciated that. So thank you for your service. Today, I want to, I kind of have a problem and maybe you guys can help me. Back in July, I wrote an email to you all expressing concern about the noise that might occur with the expansion or with the new interchange at Blue Ridge Road. And, you know, that is there any opportunity to have DOT look at installing one, a barrier wall that would reduce the noise. And then the following week, I bumped into the mayor, and he said, he inquired if I had gotten the answer to my question, and he said that as far as he knew, there had not been, that option had not been explored. And then through several exchanges with the planning department, I was, in the end, I was advised that I could certainly take it up with DOT and see what the situation would be. And so that I knew would not really get me very far since I didn't have any standing with DOT. So I was at the public, the information gathering meeting at Veterans Park with McGill and Associates, and I asked the representative from McGill, I said, you know, this is going to be bad. What do you think? And he didn't think I was wackadoodle, and he suggested that we petition that public input is important and that we petition the DOT to look at that since they hadn't invested, they hadn't started the project. And so I was excited to have that avenue with a credible recommendation from somebody that knew what they were doing. And then on Wednesday last week, I sent you all a message which was simply, would you be in support of a citizen's petition calling for a DOT feasibility study for a sound attenuating wall for Veterans Park to be included in the planned improvements to the new I-40 interchange at Blue Ridge Road? Please let me know. I don't know if you've received that email because I have not received one response from it, and I really don't know where to go with it. Somebody told me to drop it and bug out, then I'll do that. But seems like a reasonable approach, and so I don't know, the town has not been supportive of at least finding out if it's feasible, and I don't know if you're getting my emails, we're certainly not responding to them. So maybe you guys, somebody can respond privately or at the end of the meeting with your comments period that you're allowed to give me advice about whether that's worth pursuing or not. I'm just trying to help. And that seems like a worthy thing to pursue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sean. Okay. I believe we're ready for the consent agenda.
Communications first.
Oh, sorry, forgive me. Skipped right over that, didn't I? Shooting for a short meeting, I guess. We have, and I was looking forward to this one, the Bear Wise report. We have Ashley Hobbs from the North Carolina Wildlife Office and local office, and coming to give us some insight into our bear problems.
Yes, sir.
Thank
So
you for being here this evening. We
thank you
appreciate
for
it.
having me. I think I've spoken with a few of you individually over the years, just out and about at different events around Black Mountain. We've been trying to implement BearWise throughout Western North Carolina, but particularly in Buncombe County for quite some time now. Does this work? Yes. Okay. So again, my name is Ashley Hobbs. I'm the assistant black bear and fur bear biologist with the North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission. I deal with black bear management statewide. However, I am located in Buncombe County, and here's why. So last year, about 34% of all the bear human-bear interaction reports for the entire state came from Buncombe County. On average, that number is usually somewhere around 42% each year. I believe it was 2020, we had a particularly crazy year with the pandemic. I think more people were home, Of course, we have more bears. That number was actually 66%, so that was actually flip-flopped, came from Buncombe County. A lot of times we see human-bear interactions as an Asheville problem. You know, that's something that happens in Asheville. But now that development is moving out from Asheville towards places like Black Mountain, Montreat, Swannanoa, we're seeing more and more reports come from your area, from the town. And they're the same sorts of reports that we get from Asheville. A lot of them are, I saw a bear, what do I do? But we get as far as, there's a bear in my kitchen, what do I do? And everything in between. So that's what we're talking about here when we're talking about human-bear interactions. And Buncombe County is very significant in terms of statewide. So this is kind of a trend we're seeing throughout the United States, particularly in the Southeast. So in 2018, all the 15 states in the southeastern US, the bear biologists from each of those states came together and had a conversation. We were all seeing the same thing. More bears, more people, more interactions. Kind of a no-brainer, right? Because we're seeing all of this, we decided we needed an effective way to educate people on how to deal with these human-bear interactions. So we noticed that there are a lot of other programs out there you've probably heard of that provide advice on dealing with black bears and grizzly bears. But the thing that they were lacking is science-based information that is consistent. So that's where BearWise was born. It started out as a regional program in the southeastern US, officially created in 2018. And just as last year, we started having other biologists from other states coming up to us and saying, how can we use this? We have a lot of pre-packaged information that's ready to go. I've got a few examples here for you today. And they wanted to buy in. So we actually expanded to a national program just last year, and now we have 34 states whose state agencies have officially bought in. There's a fee to participate in BearWise and use BearWise. And we have several more that are in the process of becoming a BearWise state, so to speak. But essentially, we want you to have science-based information that works. So we get rid of those old wives' tales that maybe work for one person but don't work for everybody. And we want you to have the same messaging on how to coexist with black bears, no matter if you're in your beach house in Florida or you're in your mountain house up here in Black Mountain. You get the same message on how to coexist no matter where you are. And it's coming straight from the source. It's coming from the people who are managing the bears in your state. So we cut out a lot of the extra and we get straight to the stuff that works. But we want to be preventative first and foremost. We want to prevent having conflicts with bears, and there's some great simple things you can do to do that. But a lot of people are coming to BearWise for answers because they're already experiencing conflicts. And we want to give people kind of a tool belt, so to speak, on how to address those issues. So I'll give you 5 different ways to address it, and you can pick which one works best for your situation. And we want to encourage community initiatives to keep bears wild, because when we keep bears wild, we keep people and bears safe. So you guys actually had, I believe it was the second BearWise community in the US, right here in Black Mountain. Did you guys know that? Hopefully. So right in downtown Black Mountain, one of the first BearWise communities, but we have about 5 in the U.S., all right here in North Carolina. I've been creating that program over the years here. And basically they've come together and they've implemented the BearWise basics. So you see here we have the 6 BearWise basics, and these are the 6 best, most effective ways to coexist with black bears. You'll notice a lot of these are centered around attractants. Things like food, garbage, bird feeders are all things that attract bears to these urban developed areas. And when bears are hanging around, it gets them into trouble, right? So the bears aren't safe, and we as people aren't safe when we're what we call food conditioning bears through these attractants. If we could have just addressed securing attractants, we could probably resolve about 75% of the calls that we get each year in our state, not to mention in other states as well. We have a lot of information here. This is a picture of the website, bearwise.org. Prepackaged information ready to go. It covers everything from vacationing in bear country to living in bear country or recreating in bear country. And we're adding more every year. So it's ready to go at your fingertips. You just need to apply it. And I get this question a lot is why? Why should we be BearWise? And that's, again, can't stress this enough. If we keep bears wild, we keep people and bears safe. When bears are hanging around homes in more developed areas, they're more likely to be hit by a car. So you see here, this is from last year, our data. You see Buncombe County is bright red there. We get a lot of bears hit by vehicles on I-40, particularly right before the Black Mountain exit. And then along 26, 240 as well, and then you get into some of those more busy roads inside Buncombe County as well, outside of the interstates. Lots of bears being hit by vehicles. If we could secure attractants, we can keep bears moving through rather than hanging around in developed areas, and they'd be less likely to be hit by a car. They also become habituated to people. Habituated means losing their fear of humans. They also become what we call food conditioned, and that means they see people as a source of food. So this is a very young bear here. We'll call them yearlings. They're about a year to a year and a half old, still with mom, but this is a learned behavior. This bear has essentially started out its life viewing a home as a source of food. This was in, I believe, Swannanoa, so right next door to you guys. This is not just a Nashville problem anymore. This is in Black Mountain. We have reports just like this happening. Not only is it becoming a learned behavior where bears learn how to associate homes with food, the mothers are starting to teach it. So it's now a generational issue as well. And when it becomes a safety issue, we don't relocate bears. We may have to remove that bear by dispatching it. And we don't want to do that. Very rarely do we have to do that. We often get in with education. We change people's behavior to change bears' behavior. And there's also the question of community liability. If you know that bears are a big issue in one area, particularly with things like trash, dumpsters, especially in public areas, is there a liability issue if you know what's happening and we're not doing anything to address it? So I always bring that up as well. Again, we have community recognition. That's not just for neighborhoods. We have a town that is Bearwise recognized, and we have the town of Montreat right next door to you guys. I have a meeting with them next week to put a plan in place for them to become Bearwise. City of Asheville is working right now on a feeding ordinance to address feeding and securing attractants. And you've probably heard of our bear-resistant cart programs in Asheville and Buncombe County as well. There's a lot of things going on in our area to become more Bearwise, and we want to bring Black Mountain into that fold. The idea is we can fit together these different puzzle pieces of neighborhoods, towns, cities, etc., and we can have these larger areas of communities practicing Bearwise. So that's all I have for you guys today. I want to invite you to come to the table, have a wider discussion on how we can implement Bearwise best in Black Mountain. And I have my information up here just for anyone here today. And I always include our NC Wildlife Helpline. It's a great resource for anything you have in terms of wildlife questions, issues. You can always contact us. We'll have a biologist speak with you.
Great, thank you, Ashley. The council may have some questions for you, but I have one, and your report and the Bearwise program sounds great. So hopefully it's something that that we can move forward on. But I'm curious about the process when you got a problem bear.
Mm-hmm.
So should our citizens call your office directly? Who should they call if they've got a bear problem?
That phone number right there.
right?
Yep,
Call
that'll go to Raleigh. That's
Yeah.
where our headquarters are. We have biologists who man that essentially during normal business hours. But there's also an email address up there too if you have a picture or a video you'd like to include. And what we'll do is either that biologist will give you information on how to resolve that issue. But if it is an issue that needs to be dealt with on the ground, we need to get out to your house and get a bit more information, then those people can refer you directly to people in your area. So whoever's assigned to your area, whether it's an officer, a biologist on the ground, can come out and dig a little deeper into your issue.
That sounds great. Do we have that information on our website?
I don't think we do, but we can.
I
Absolutely.
think that'd be a good thing.
Absolutely.
Because if I think now our citizens probably call our police department and
Mm-hmm.
they really,
And they don't know how to handle a lot of that. Yeah, and it's not their jurisdiction.
I still
So
might call-
Mountain right now is going to be a great resource.
great, thank you. Council, any questions?
What are some examples of how are other jurisdictions implementing some of these?
Yeah. So I actually came a little bit prepared. I hope you had questions. Require Probably not. Like I said, it was perfect storm with them to be able to make those requirements. And they had recently had a few bears that their local enforcement had to put down in their town. So there was a lot of momentum behind it at the time. But certainly by asking people to store their trash in a garage or a shed on non-collection day. That's one that a lot of my neighborhoods undertake because it's costs nothing, but a little bit of your time, right? And then things like not putting trash on top of the can can beside the can, putting it in the can, things of that nature. There's also retrofits are an option as well when it comes to garbage. When it comes to feeding, it's best if we don't feed wildlife. It's best if we don't attract bears. But most of my communities opt for seasonal feeding, so they feed when bears are less active throughout the year. So from Thanksgiving to Easter, they might have out a bird feeder. Easter, they bring in that bird feeder until Thanksgiving again, just to kind of minimize those attractants. So I'd say most of them are feeding seasonally and storing carts in bear-resistant locations.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Anyone else? Great, thank you, Ashley. We appreciate you coming out. And next we have the golf course annual report. Brent Miller. Let's see.
It's on this one.
All right, hold on one second.
This wouldn't be normal if we didn't have some sort of issue with technology.
And Ashley, you're welcome to leave if you'd like, and you're
No more
welcome to stay.
questions?
You're welcome
Okay.
to stay.
Thank you, guys.
Do you have it on your phone, Brent?
I do.
Can you follow it long enough? Can you manage to speak about it?
You can come back next month
Yeah.
if you're more comfortable with it, Brent.
I mean, it would certainly be easier, but, I mean, there's a lot of information that would be good.
It is not going to contain all the water on site. That's not the goal. It is just to try to keep some of the water cleaner when it leaves than it would have if it just rushed off your house. So you have to have these plans, and then you're supposed to have it inspected. Now, young junior engineer staff, instead of these firms who were sending out senior staff for $1,200 a pop. So those were the ways we were able to help with that. So we sent out our inspection letters this year, and we've come across two common situations. You have occasionally somebody who refuses. They say, I'm not going to get an inspection. You have a couple, what everybody else is saying is, I didn't even know I had one of these. And I didn't have, or my file's not complete. And that's because our stormwater program was haphazardly administered for a decade, just like every other town in the state, because the state of North Carolina didn't really audit anybody. They didn't really enforce the rules. They just said, do the best you can for a very long time. So in 2018, 2019, the huge lift, and you have a very small section who say, make me. So that's kind of where we are. What we're trying to do and what we're doing now with folks, we're going to have a workshop in January with we'll invite every permit owner in town. And we're going to have our lovely town attorney join us, Andrew Bick of Headwaters, and you get a pass this year, but I can't of it. And if somebody's a real estate person didn't tell them that was on their property, the town can't do anything about that, except try to help them understand it and figure out how to deal with it moving forward. That's our goal, is to be a resource and get everybody straight. But when there are folks who are not interested in getting their records correct and are not going to participate, there are going to be penalties associated with that, just like any other violation in the development regulations. Those are clearly outlined.
Who imposes the penalty?
The town, it's a town ordinance. Just like any other accumulation of trash or tall grass or anything like that.
Is the statute, maybe this is a question for Ron, does the statute require the town to levy a penalty or a fine?
It requires you to enforce it. If ultimately the town is not doing what the state tells us to do, that the APA is telling them to tell us to do, the cost of the town is a $25,000 fine.
Right, so we get fined for not enforcing.
For not
That's what you're
enforcing.
saying. Yeah. Well, it's just, I think a lot of this it's why you're here this evening. We, we need to educate the public better. It's an awkward situation because some people have been forever, but haven't been enforced. And so we're just moving through that. So thank you for being here. Questions? I'm sorry, were you finished, Jessica?
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah.
What's the breakdown of residential and commercial?
So essentially, it is this. If you have a residential property and it is one house, that is able to have one engineered every 3 years and a state certified person in the interim. If it is a neighborhood, if it's multiple houses being served by one, or if it is a non-residential property, then it has to be, each year it has to be an engineer.
Okay. And then you said there were roughly 100,
Mm-hmm.
are they mostly residential or?
There's actually a really good mix, and we're finding through this process of working back through some of these files that it's some of the most early permits were actually small subdivision applications. But instead of having a system-wide stormwater SCM, they had individual ones on each property. And they're in the process of breaking those out so they can be recorded individually on their deeds, and so they can individually go on to these every third year. This is their preference. We didn't make them. This was what they asked us to do. Ron said we could do it, so we were helping them. So it's residential, but it's multiple houses.
And is your understanding that they're
It would be good if some council members might be able to attend the workshop.
The more the merrier.
Yeah,
Yeah, it'll be good.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, when we have the date available, we will get that to you.
Thank you, Jessica.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? We done with that topic? Great, thank you for that. And Brent?
We've got these, passing around to you.
we got that too?
All right.
Oh, look.
Oh,
I know, it's gone.
look at that. Yeah.
All right, pass the paper out.
Start right when it passes up. Go cheeks.
There we go. You got a paper copy and the
There
screen.
you go.
All right. All right, Mayor Harris, council members, thanks for having me up tonight. My name is Brent Miller. I'm going to give you a little fiscal year 21-22 review and then a look at 22-23 through the first quarter. Starting out, here's a little bit of information from the National Golf Foundation. According to the National Golf Foundation, there were 30 million more rounds golf played in March and April of 21 than the previous year. Rounds for 2021 were up 19% rounds in this year versus the last 3-year average. You'll see that on revenues here in just a few minutes. It obviously impacted things in a positive way. So how did we get people to the golf course? One of the biggest things we did was switch to the GolfNow G1 system. It allowed us to market our tee times a little bit better online. It just puts them in front of people easier. They're probably the best service as far as selling tee times, and we actually saw a 40% increase in our online bookings this year. Daily fee play has really grown. That's people who don't have a pass at all. They just come out and play golf. It's 82% of our daily rounds right now. Obviously, there's a big tourist market here. We're trying to tap into that, keep the golf course in great shape, which helps us stand out from the competition. Have great greens all year long with fair prices. And I think you see that there with our GolfNow rating. We got it to go from 3.5 to 4.1. That's out of 5. This is solely based on the players who book tee times. So that's based on conditions, value, staff friendliness, course amenities, and pace of play. I tried to focus on conditions, staff friendliness, and pace of play because I felt like those were things that we could control better than maybe a couple of the others there. Jerry kept the greens in great shape this year. Staff friendliness, we always try to treat people nice, but just go above and beyond where we can. And then pace of play, we kept tee times at 10 minutes intervals, which keeps enough time between groups where I can slip in non-tee time play, but it also keeps people from being bunched up and keeps the golf course moving and people having a good time. So who's playing the course? Again, 82% of the rounds are daily fee play, where 18% are pass holders. That's annual pass or players pass. We had one of the biggest ladies associations we've ever had this year. That was over 35 ladies in that group. We had obviously Owen Middle, Owen High, AC, and Montreat College all utilizing the course for practice. But the biggest thing I saw increase was the stay in place. People who come into town on Friday night here in Black Mountain, they spend the whole weekend here. They play golf, usually Saturday, go out to dinner Friday, Saturday night, and then sometimes come back and play again on Sunday, or they go home. But I saw more of that this year than I think I ever have. So maybe that's people just needing to get out after the pandemic, or maybe that's just a new thing with this element of golf that hasn't played in the past. So either way, it's good for us. So because of this, we didn't have quite as many tournaments as we normally do. It's hard when your tee sheet's booking up every day to block it off for a tournament, but we did try to do some local fundraising. So Owen High School hosted 3 events this year. All 3 had 125 plus players, and the Warhorse Open was actually the largest it's been in 20 years. We actually had a waiting list of 5. We could have had 160 people in that event, which we just didn't have the carts to pull it off. Black Mountain PD and Chief Parker held their first annual tournament for the community outreach program. They had almost 100 in attendance for this one. And my best guess is the way he pushes for it on June 9th this coming year, that one will be full. So if you're interested in playing in it, get signed up early. And then the local VFW Post, they held their 3rd annual event. It's actually doubled in size since their first year. So there's a ton of support for that one. And all that money comes right back here to the local VFW Post. So I know that a bunch of you guys played in our tournaments this year. Really appreciate the support from the board. So thanks for that. One small thing we did, we rebranded our logo a little bit and just tried to make it younger. Essentially, I went with the leather patch and also did one there you can see on the right side with our Richardson logo hats. It's got a leather North Carolina state emblem and then our logo embedded in that. And then went with like a more modern fit on the clothing, and it seems to be helping sales with all these younger people that we have coming to play the course. So another great thing was the golf carts. This council here actually passed that. We've been trying to get them for a couple of years. That was a huge enhancement to everybody's experience at the golf course. You know, you can have a great course, great food, but if people go out there and play golf and their cart breaks down or they have a flat tire or the seat's ripped, it's embarrassing for the golf course, number one, but you know, they don't want to come back. So I think this was one of the most beneficial things that we've done in the last couple of years for sure. So thanks again for helping us with that. Maintenance staff, this is probably the biggest thing. You got to have a golf course that people want to come play. And in my opinion, the guys, especially with the small crew we have, Jerry's our superintendent, we have 2 full-time guys, Chris and Carson, with some help from First Incorporated, taking care of all 90 acres out there. And the greens remained healthy all year long. We got compliments all year long, and it kept people coming back. One little example of that, greens 16 and 11, they've been troubled greens for us for years, especially 16. This was after some pretty intense heat back in June and lack of rain. And you can see through irrigation practices, spraying techniques, and changing height of cut when he needed to, he kept those greens looking really good. And I think he did a fantastic job. So what did all that lead to? Well, it led to more revenue. For one, the biggest category you're going to see there are the greens fees. I don't know if you can see that, but that's $434,910 in greens fee revenue. We budgeted $290,000, so we were way ahead. Cart fees were actually a little bit lower than budgeted, but for the first 5 months of the year, we only had about 52 functioning carts until we got our carts back in November. So, you know, if I've got 20 more carts I can put out a day, that makes a huge difference. So we started seeing that as the tail end of the season came around. Pro shop sales, even though merchandise was hard to get a hold of just because of supply chain issues, we still beat budget there with $25,739 to opposed to $25,000 budgeted. And you'll see memberships dropping mainly because people are switching over to the Players Pass, and that's why greens fees are taking off the way they are. So overall, we made $722,609. We budgeted $650 for the year, so $72,000 ahead of our budgeted numbers there. So fortunately, we were back in the black this year. We would have been even better, but some of our expenses were quite a bit higher than they have been in years past. Some things almost 40% higher than they typically are. I think golf is no different than anything else you're experiencing in the rest of your life. Things just cost more right now. But fortunately, that put us showing about a $55,000 profit. As of now, the auditors haven't completely finished, but there's not much left to change. So that could go up or down a very slight amount. So looking ahead at 22-23, again, we're off to a great start. What you're seeing there, the dark green is fiscal year 22-23. The light green is 21-22. Ahead 43,000 roughly in greens fees. Ahead 2,300 in cart fees. Ahead 2,700 in pro shop sales. Memberships are down 4,600, but so far for the first quarter, we're ahead $44,400 from last year. So hopefully I'll be sitting here next year with even better news than this year. I think that trend will continue just based on the amount of play that we're getting, and if we keep the place in good shape, it should continue. I didn't do a slide for this, but I wanted to mention we'll be slowing down for the winter, but Karen at the grill, she's doing a fantastic job. I want people to continue to try to support her. There's a lot of people who don't play golf that come and eat lunch at the grill, eat breakfast at the grill. If you hadn't tried it, definitely go try it because it's really good. Other than that, does anybody have any questions or comments or
Questions for
anything?
Brent? Good job.
I have one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Why do you think memberships are down?
Because I think there's more value in the daily fee rate, to be honest with you. People who walk a lot, Mayor Harris here, he's a walker. If you walk, it makes more sense because you can come and play 250 times if you want. You could play 365 times if you wanted to with a membership, and you're not paying anything else when you come out and walk. When you have to pay for that cart fee, then you have to start to do the math on how many rounds of golf it takes to make the membership work out based on just paying the cart and green fee. The other thing is the people who had memberships for years, quite honestly, have started aging out some, and the younger folks just don't seem to buy annual passes like that where they're going to play at the same place all the time. They kind of tend to bounce around and play different places. So I think that's probably the biggest reason is the value of the daily fee just makes more sense.
Is that part in part because we raised the fee over the last 2 years, or?
Well, I mean, it's yeah, I mean, maybe, but if you look at like what our competitors are doing, there's still a ton of value in the annual pass because you just take a look at what other people are charging. We're still cheaper, other than maybe Asheville Municipal. So I don't really think we're overcharging. I just think we've hit that sweet spot where the greens fee is the right price compared to the annual pass, and we just have more people right now interested in playing that daily fee rate or that player's pass rate, which a lot of the annual pass holders switched over to that player's pass. They're getting $10 off that rack rate each time, and I think they probably just can't play enough golf to make the other one work out. So,
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Good job.
Thanks.
So Asheville Municipal Course is having a rough time right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, I hear the same stuff you guys do. I don't really know anyone over there, but they're definitely having a
I
hard
was
time.
just wondering if maybe people are coming here because our course is nicer.
We've certainly got some of their play. There's no doubt about that. And I think when people are traveling to the area, they get online and look at reviews just like you do if you're booking a hotel or going to a restaurant. And, they're going to go where it looks like they're going to have the best time and the best bang for their buck. And I think right now that certainly would be us. So.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but that 4.1, whenever they see that online, that makes a big difference to a golfer.
Yeah.
I would, Brent, thank you for your leadership there, and in particular, the maintenance staff, because I see that course all the time. I walk it in the mornings, and all year they're out, they work hard, and it really shows.
I
And
appreciate that.
It's a real value for the town. It's just like so many of our recreational areas. It just makes Black Mountain a better place to be.
Definitely.
Amen. Sure does. Anybody else? Thank you, Brent. Good report.
Yeah, appreciate
Congratulations
it.
on a good year.
Yeah, keep it up.
Now we're ready for the consent agenda. Josh?
All right. Pardon me. Your consent agenda tonight consists of 5 items. 5A being the adoption of minutes, October 6, 2022 special call meeting, October 6, 2022 agenda meeting, October 10th, 2022 regular meeting, and the October 10th, 2022 closed session meeting. Item 5B is a budget amendment to increase the budgeted expenditure amount for the stormwater master plan. As I mentioned to you in our agenda meeting, we had a bill come in kind of across budget seasons, so we need to do an amendment on our budget to account for that expenditure. 5C is a budget amendment to increase the salaries of part-time employees. You'll recall last month we did an increase to all part-time wages of 6%. So this is going to account for that increase in pay. Item 5D is a budget amendment to increase the funding for the Montreat Road Bike Boulevard plan. Now, this is actually implementation of the plan. We also talked about this last month as well, as far as the increase for that combined crossing down on Montreat Road. And lastly, you have a Skyrunner Incorporated license to formalize usage of town property for the maintenance of small radio communication antenna at Fire Station Number 1. I was unable to speak with Sarah this morning. She is out of town today. And we did hear back from Skyrunner, and from what they've told us, they provide service to 7,500 individuals in the county. Not sure about Black Mountain proper, but that's the answer we got from them. And that'll be your consent agenda.
Thank you. Any questions for Josh on the consent agenda?
I have a few. I'm sorry. I have so many questions tonight. Josh, I had a little trouble understanding the license agreement for the tower. Is it just the $200 fee, or is there a monthly fee as well?
It's a $200 monthly fee, and each year it increases 5%.
Okay. Do you know how we landed on that $200?
I think they started with a number and we built in the increase. They proposed 200 and they're paying nothing now, so that was fair leap. And I was the one that added an annual increase of 5%.
It seems low. I don't know how many people use it, but that doesn't seem like very much to provide service.
It may not be. I won't say that I'll argue that's a good number. That was the beginning number they came to us with, and this board determined.
Okay.
And we're happy to, if y'all decide you want to do something different, we're happy to go back.
So what we could do, Councilmember Hay, is pull that one and get some more information on comparative pricing if it's available. It's scheduled to be voted on, so we're voting on it. It sounds like we'd rather not vote on it tonight. I'll leave it to the town attorney if he has any input on it, but we just put it on the agenda for next
Sure.
month.
Putting it off month, all it's costing us is $200.
$200. Right now, $200.
You really have your feelings hurt if you take it to 500 and realize that waiting a month costs you $500.
But we could pull that one if that's agreeable to council.
I mean, I don't know if anyone else
Sure.
cares.
I would think it's a wise thing. to do.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
So we'll pull that one from the consent agenda and we'll work on it for next time around.
And then I was speaking with Josh earlier today about the Bike Boulevard, and I had a few questions, and he said maybe it'd be a good opportunity to ask. Well, during the agenda meeting, you mentioned that the former Greenways Committee, Active Mobility Committee, had to send people down, I believe, South Park Lane for the Bike Boulevard instead of Willow Circle. I spent some time thinking about that over the weekend, and I'm just curious why we did choose Laurel Circle there, since it is a little more heavily trafficked, and if we could talk about that a little bit.
I would be happy for Colin to come up, Mr. Mayor, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, since he's here, it'd be great. Come on up.
Sure.
Good evening.
Hey, Colin, how are you?
Good. So, my understanding is that the original plan for just the bike pedestrian plan called for the bike boulevard to go down South Park Lane. We've chosen it to go down Laurel Circle to connect to Lake Tomahawk. And I'm wondering what the benefits are for Laurel Circle.
The benefits for Laurel Circle is it's a more direct route. We walked and rode and took a hard look at all the roads between Lake Tomahawk and getting over to the Greenway and to Montreat Road. And Laurel Circle was about as straight a shot as you can make it. And for bikers and walkers, going when you're using physical labor to get from point A to point B, going a shorter distance is typically going to be a little more efficient that way. Laurel Circle has sidewalk continuously from one end to the other. So bringing both bikes and pedestrians on the same route, it gets them to a crossing where you can serve both users at a crossing rather than trying to address pedestrians at one location as opposed to bikes at a different location.
Okay. And I guess with that intersection where the crosswalk that we're looking at funding here, are we expecting bikes to get on the sidewalk on Montreat Road?
No.
Okay, so what will the crossing be, I guess?
So the crossing will be it's basically a multi-use crossing there. The bikes will come down and they will stay on asphalt and cross over they will get on the sidewalk on Montreat Road.
Okay.
So the 2-block distance from Laurel Circle down to First Street, they'll be on the sidewalk on that section.
Oh, they will. Okay.
Yeah. But to cross Montreat Road, they will stay on the road and cross. Whereas the pedestrians will be on the sidewalk, they'll use a crosswalk, and they will have push buttons for them to cross on the crosswalk with accessible ramps.
Okay. And then on Laurel Circle is probably aside from Montreat Road, is where we were on the sidewalk, is probably the most heavily trafficked, I would imagine, part of that bike boulevard. And with the big uphill and the turn, or I guess downhill if you're going to the lake, that big turn. I'm wondering, I know we have Sharrows planned. What other kind of signage or what else we're planning for this? I'm thinking about my daughter on a bike, whereas I am comfortable on Laurel Circle, my daughter on a bike boulevard, like what would we be telling cars here and how are you informing them to?
In addition to the Sharrows that will be painted on the street, there will be signage, both warning signs and directional signs that give notice to people that it's a bike boulevard and that bikes are allowed to use, the entire road.
Okay.
But the volume is low and the speeds are low, and it's about as comfortable as you're going to be able to get for a local neighborhood street to be able to ride on.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other questions on any items on the consent agenda? And we are pulling item E. So the consent agenda is items A through D. Questions? If there are none, a motion to approve.
So moved.
All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Citizen comments regarding any of the items of new business. All right, hearing none, new business. The Duke Energy Progress easement for parcel as numbered.
So, Mr. Mayor and Council, I think Attorney Sneed has excusing himself, and Attorney Susan Russo Klein is going to take the seat. But this is, when we talked about this at the agenda meeting, this is to grant an easement of power line, essentially for power easement across town on property to a Mr. Fred Alexander so he can get access to power. And I'll let Susan continue.
So this is an easement to grant power that would cross 134 East Street. That's property that the town owns. It was granted to the town by FEMA as part of the floodway. So at present, it's not seeing any other use. The benefit to the easement is that Mr. Alexander can then have power access across his property. Duke would maintain that easement, have the same rights and obligations as it does with our other power easements. The easement agreement that was presented is their standard form. We have dozens of those that are identical in our firm's coffers. The downside is if you have use that would contradict this, if there's any use that you plan for the property or could foresee planning for the property, then granting the easement might not be to the advantage of the town if it would interfere with that use in the future, because the easement is permanent, runs with the land, and will be available to future buyers of this land. That's it. What questions can I answer?
Yeah, any questions for Susan?
We have granted him permits. The town has granted him permits already.
That's right. He included a copy of the permit that he had that allows him to use that for, to get that power access. So you could certainly grant the power, but not grant the easement. You're not obligated to grant the easement, but the town has obviously seen a reason to grant him that permit in the first place.
Any other questions for Susan? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the Duke Energy Progress easement.
So moved.
All right, any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Thank you, Susan, for coming out.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
All right,
All right.
item B.
Item 8B is a Highway 70 Waterline Capital Project Fund Ordinance. This is to create the capital project fund for the Highway 70 Waterline Upgrade Project. We're creating a capital project fund because we know this is it's going to straddle budget years. So we want to go ahead and get this set up. That way we don't have to reallocate funds to this after we end the budget season.
All right, questions for Josh on the Waterline Capital Project Fund ordinance? In hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the Capital Project Fund ordinance as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Item C, amendment to ARPA grant project ordinance and amendment to the 2022-23 general fund budget.
So as we've talked at length about ARPA money in the town, and we've chosen to use that ARPA money for salaries, which was an allowable use. So what item C does is it pays the money for salaries, and then the money that was originally budgeted for salaries goes back into coffers essentially. So what we're doing with item C is setting up, putting that money into those coffers. One going into the $500,000 going into the Waterline Capital Project Fund ordinance, and then another $500 going into the dam project ordinance that's already created.
Thank you. Questions for Josh on that? And hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the amendment to the ARPA Grant Project Fund Ordinance, amendment to the fiscal year 2022-23 General Fund Annual Budget Ordinance, and transfer of funds from ARPA Grant Project Fund to the General Fund to cover the approved projects.
So moved.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? And hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Resolution for Honeycutt Street, one way.
And I'll let Mr. Colin Clinton come and speak as well in this in case anyone has questions. But as we talked a few months ago, and I think fire and police really, I think kind of brought this at least back to the table, but potential for making Honeycutt one way. This is the street that runs in front of the emergency services building. And Mr. Clinton here Mr. Kenton, is here. He did the analysis on this, and the recommendation is to go uphill or west as a one-way street, and I will let you take over.
Sure, thank you. So what we did is we counted traffic on Honeycutt and then compared the volume on Honeycutt with the intersection counts we had at the other intersections surrounding that area, including State and Montreat and Richardson and State, and then even on First Street. And after collecting all the traffic data, we realigned and moved the traffic around as a one-way street. What we noticed there are some people that will use Honeycutt as a cut through. And there's a lot of users in that area with fire and police and the splash pad and the park. And so there's just a lot of conflict opportunities on Honeycutt, and somebody using Honeycutt as a cut through may not be as observant with all the other users in that area. So in looking at the options, we rerouted our traffic in our model around to see what kind of impacts it have on the network. As a result, you do get an increase in left turns from Montreat onto State Street, and you get an increase in traffic from turning left from State onto Richardson. The good is you have fewer traffic on Richardson turning out on State. So the net increase on traffic at other intersections is actually pretty minimal, less than 2%. And we ran traffic analysis operations on those intersections and did not see any kind of significant increases in delays. Because we're talking about in the peak hour of 15 to 30 vehicles that are being rerouted. So in analyzing how that rerouting would take place with a one-way, we did not see any kind of significant increase in delays or any, what I'd say would be a downside to it. The upside is it does cut out the cut-through traffic, and thinks that we think it will be a safer solution, and that was our recommendation.
Great, thank you, Colin. Questions for Colin?
Will the town need to change the slanted parking the other way?
Yes, and if you flip all the way through, I think the last slide I have has kind of, it just shows the volumes, how we did it. There you go. So that's just a conceptual of how it would be aligned. And it was all recently resurfaced, so it hasn't been striped yet, has it?
Correct. It's not striped yet.
Also, go ahead.
Seems like it makes sense that you wouldn't want fire trucks and police vehicles going out when cars are coming in.
Correct.
Why didn't we think of this a long time ago?
Yeah.
Actually, it came up since
It's been up
since
before.
we've been on the board, but yeah, it came up one time before.
And this also plays into the, I think the DOT is working on an emergency signal that will go at Honeycutt and Montreat. So this will help get traffic, emergency vehicles out and onto the highway where they
Yeah, I've
need.
been working on it for some time, and can you get any information on that? Maybe it's on Angela's sheet.
I'm happy to do that, Mayor. The last conversation was probably 3 weeks ago, and it was still waiting on parts.
Yeah.
But yes, we
Yeah,
will
so
follow
that'll
up.
be good.
Yeah.
It will work out well. Any other questions for Colin?
My only concern is that if you're coming down Montreat Road, to get to that parking, you really have to, you have to turn on East State and on Rhododendron and then on Honeycutt. You have to go quite a ways out of the way.
Or you can go down First in Midland.
Oh, that's
Midland will
true.
probably get
Yeah.
busier.
And in our analysis, we did assume that more of the local population, the residents, would probably go down first. In that it's a lot of the visitors will not be aware of First, and they will make that trip around. The nice thing is you get to the parking lot before getting to Honeycutt that way. So might actually end up reducing some of that traffic on Honeycutt because it gets people to the parking lot where there's a lot more availability typically.
Are we concerned at all about the increase in traffic on First and on
No, because those,
Midland?
again, we were talking in volumes of less than 30, and the percentage that we expect to use First would be even smaller than that. We're talking 5 to 10 cars during an hour, so.
Any other questions? And hearing none, and I think too, when this came up before, I don't think there was a consensus between police and fire as to doing it, and that's been some years back, but that's what I recall. Does that ring a bell to you? But anyway, it doesn't matter because it's good we've looked at it again, and I think it makes good sense. It's a little unsafe the way it appears, so thank you. So, any other questions?
Hey, yeah, sorry. Is the fire trucks will need to go up Rhododendron, or I'm sorry, not Rhododendron, Richardson, and cut down as well? Is that gonna be a problem?
Yeah.
No, okay.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve Resolution R-2223 to turn Honeycutt Street one-way going westbound from West Street to Montreat Road.
So moved.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no.
No.
Great, thank you. Facilities use agreement, Carver Center.
Item 8E is a facilities use agreement for the Carver Center, specifically the kitchen in the Carver Center. Erin Van Noe, she is here in the audience. She's here to answer some questions if council or mayor have any. Erin has been speaking with me about this, probably for about 4 years, and COVID kind of just put the brakes on it. We didn't do much talking during COVID about it. She's since been able to kind of re-energize that conversation with another partner, which would be Bounty and Soul. In the agreement, you'll see that Attorney Sneed has put together, they are asking at least Montessori and Bounty and Soul to kind of use the kitchen 1 day a week in the afternoons to teach middle-aged school children and their parents cooking classes. And that's pretty much the gist of it.
Thank you. Questions? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the facilities use agreement as presented.
So moved.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? And hearing none, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. So, Historic Preservation Commission.
So we received this application from Amy Pate. We have 2 vacancies currently on Historic Preservation Commission, so they are just barely meeting their quorum requirements. She has offered to serve, and if you choose to appoint her, we'll have 1 vacancy that will remain open pending new applications.
Great, thank you. Questions? And hearing none, I entertain a motion to appoint Amy Pate to fill a 3-year term ending June the 30th, 2025 on Historic Preservation Commission.
So moved.
Thank you. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The next item is the billboard lease at the community garden. We actually moved this, I believe, from the consent agenda here so that we could discuss it just a little bit more and actually just see if council wanted to even proceed with that. Ron, did you have some comments?
Now that I'm formally the institutional memory, 25 years or so ago, the town, for the concerted effort to get rid of billboards, tall signs. There's some of you remember when the McDonald's sign was 100 feet tall. There was a billboard every time you turned around. And we spent a lot of time and effort, lower the McDonald's signs and others, and remove billboards where we could. A number of billboards we could not. This particular one's one of them because it was in the federal highway corridor. We had no control over those. And so just before you decide to lease again, I'd like to point out at one point, the town had a policy of getting rid of and not encouraging billboards before you decide whether to go forward with this or not. So I want you to be aware of it, not arguing for or against it one way or the other. I don't think it's a huge money maker for the town, And my discussion with some of the sign people is the internet's eating the billboard people up too. The rates they're paying going down because the rates they can get are going down.
Great. Questions for Ron?
It's very troubling that people are not responsive. That you've reached out multiple times to.
And I think we may have finally gotten them, contact with them, but it's been months of an ordeal to try to do that.
They cited turnover, and I actually spoke with their new, I guess their project manager the day before this went to agenda.
Questions for Ron?
I'll just say that I would much rather not have a billboard in the park than get $925 a year. That's just my opinion. I mean, if we thought it could be a much larger sum than that, if we could negotiate something bigger, then maybe it could fund improvements to the park or something, and that would be a different discussion. But this feels like such a little money, and that sign is large and in the middle of the disc golf course.
Right. Well, and even if the financial incentive was significant, as the town attorney mentioned, we asked the McDonald's folks to take theirs down, and I think it was a good thing for the town. So I'm not sure that revenue is a driver here.
If we decide we don't want to renew the lease, who is responsible for removing that big metal structure out there?
They are.
Good question.
Yeah, it's unsightly.
Any other questions for town attorney or for staff? So the motion is that the council would move that the town council direct the town attorney and staff to pursue a new lease opportunity. And so I'll entertain a motion, and should the council wish not to proceed, you would just vote no, all right? All right, so any other questions? So the motion before you is to direct council to direct the attorney and staff to pursue a new lease opportunity. And any other questions or comments? All those in favor, aye. And all those opposed, no.
No.
Great, thank you.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, could we have a motion to direct the town attorney to notify the sign company that they want, lease will not be renewed and to remove their equipment?
Everyone hear that? So the motion is to direct the town attorney to communicate with the lessee that that the lease will not be renewed and to remove the sign.
So moved.
Thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor of that motion?
Aye.
Great, thank you. And lastly, we have on the agenda for discussion, crosswalk on Broadway. And I will just open the floor up for discussion and wanted to just get it on the agenda and get some, maybe give staff some direction on it. So, anyone?
We've heard from citizens a number of times with concern about this, and I've been talking to Josh about it for 2 years, and I know other council members have too, but it's just recently moved higher in my list of priorities because the foot traffic on Broadway has escalated dramatically, and it's really quite frightening. But the issue is that we'll have to pay for that. NCDOT, we've done that kind of work, right? The studies, traffic studies and so on, but we'll have to pay for that. And there could well be a loss of some parking spots, which will not be popular. So there's some things to consider here. It occurred to me over the weekend that it just seems to me that this is something the TDA should pay for. This is a tourism issue. Keeping tourism safe, tourists safe is important, and it's the kind of thing the TDA is supposed to pay for. So I'm just throwing that out there as something maybe we could explore.
So would council, would our way forward here just to be that council direct staff to begin work with NCDOT and examine what traffic engineering might be required so that we can council can knowledgeably make that decision with all the appropriate information.
With,
Go ahead.
within that, would there be a study done to maybe show the increase probably in traffic backup or the increase with traffic from coming across State Street down Broadway from the red light and also the red light down at the bottom of the hill coming this way? Because I know at sometimes traffic is backed up on that street past the Exxon station. So
That's right. We need to do some, it's gonna take a little study to make sure we know what we're doing.
Well, maybe NCDOT has a better solution than a crosswalk. I don't know, maybe there's other ways to make it safer, but
I agree that it needs to be made safer. I
It's-
agree with Pam.
It's a crosswalk now, it's just not.
So, there you go. That's right. It is. That's
But
exactly right.
also, I would like to add for staff to consider the issue of parking on Broadway. There's always a very large vehicle.
Yeah.
That decides to park there, and it doesn't work.
Right. That's unsafe as well.
Yeah, I think it's and people trying to back out.
Yeah.
And, to me, you need to put in parallel parking and you give up spaces, but it's unsafe.
Well, it could well be that what we need to do is a pretty comprehensive study of the street, and it's because it's an important street for a variety of reasons,
The
as we all
traffic
know.
volume is just unbelievable.
and the merchants need to have a chance to weigh in.
Yeah.
It's gonna affect them.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sure. So then, I don't know that a motion is required, but I think what I'm hearing from council is we want to direct the town manager to come back with a plan to take a comprehensive look at the street and to manage the issues that we know are already there.
Be happy to.
Does that sound good? Sound like a good direction?
Before we move on, Josh, because we are adding a crosswalk at the end of the block down there
So,
on Sutton, right?
I will say, that whole intersection where the train track is down at Sutton, it's gonna be completely transformed. And that'll be a couple years, but yeah, there'll be pedestrian signalization there, crosswalks, lots of different amenities. at
It's
that
gonna be
location.
about $1 million project, isn't it? With that crosswalk.
Yeah, because the signals, like the traffic signals will need to change too. It's pretty comprehensive down there.
Okay, thank you.
Is that good?
That really needs to be part of it.
Yeah, right, that would have to be part of what we're talking about.
All right, is that good for everybody? So give some
Thank
direction on that, and I think with that, I put my agenda away, but I believe that is all our new business. And we are done. We are ready for town attorney. Do you have anything for us this evening?
I have nothing to add. I've stirred up enough.
All right, for you. And town manager?
And I'll just mention a couple things. We have the Thanksgiving holidays next week, if I'm not mistaken. Next Thursday and Friday, the town offices will be closed. Happy Thanksgiving to folks. And then, just so council knows, I could have sent this out in an email, but hopefully the folks on Paget Town Road are listening. We have gotten quotes from contractors to tear down the house we voted to tear down it was last month. And that work is to be starting in December to tear that house down. So that's it from me.
Great, thank you, Josh. Council?
I would like to publicly thank Brian Stone for his service on the council, and to me personally, he's been a great help, and I've enjoyed serving with him. Same with Mayor Mary Harris. Thank you so much for your service. Really enjoyed working with you.
Thank you, Bill. Appreciate it. Anyone else?
Just echo the same sentiments to Ryan and Mayor Harris, or Councilmember Stone and Mayor Harris. And also thank everybody who engaged in the process, in the democratic process, and voted last week. And congratulations to those who were elected, and thanks to everyone who was willing to run, because I think that is such an important thing, and I'm glad to see so many people were willing to do that. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
I'd also like to echo, it's really a pleasure to serve with Ryan and Mayor Harris. And also welcome to our new council member that's here and present, and to our new mayor also.
Great, thank you.
I will reiterate what they've said. It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed 2 years of civil discourse and guidance and support, and both of you have been so helpful.
Well, I feel like it's getting old talking about you, man. But Larry, it's been, and I'll say this again at the next meeting, and I've told you this privately, it's been a pleasure serving with you. I've always appreciated the courtesy you've treated me with and the respect that you've shown me, even at times where we've disagreed. And I appreciate everything you've done with your leadership of this town. I know that it's come from a good place and have the best intentions at heart, and the town is grateful for your service. So I want to just say that we all owe you a debt, and thank you very much for that. And serving with Pam and Archie, Doug, Bill, it's been a pleasure. I know I've only got one special meeting and half of an agenda and something left, but it really has been a joy. And as I told Alice, I hope that your continued service will bring you all as much joy as it's brought me over the last 9 years, because it's been an absolute pleasure to work with the staff and the folks here. The professionalism, the dedication, the passion they have for this community is unmatched by any that I've seen from talking to peers throughout the state. And it's a wonderful place. And when I first ran, I said I wanted to leave things a little better than I found them. And with Larry's help and Carlos Showers and Maggie Tuttle, Don Collins, Tim Raymer, and all those folks that came before us, I can look myself in the mirror and say that. And I appreciate y'all bearing with me as I've learned this position, and hopefully I didn't disappoint you too much. And just thank you for giving me this opportunity. It's been an amazing experience.
Thank you, Ryan. Anyone else, council, any other comments? Well, thank you for those kind comments, and I would echo the same. It's been an honor to serve as mayor and to serve as a council member for a number of years, and I go back to the late 80s, and when we annexed a good bit of territory around Black Mountain, and changed the footprint of town a good bit, and I would be a little overstating my import in that, except I was one of the 5 votes, but there was a lot of leadership and a lot of leadership who took a lot of criticism for it. Those involuntary annexations could be raucous affairs, and because it's just not a pleasant thing for those being annexed for the most part involuntarily. But I think it was a good thing for the town. We connected Montreat and Black Mountain, and with no county space in between. And I think we also, the footprint of the town is what we have now, and I think it's pretty important that it was that way. So that, of course, is not an alternative any longer, and I understand why that legislatively made it that way. But at the same time, planning in that fashion is not unimportant, and leaves just a bit of a void in our ability to plan without it. But I'm not making a proponent for you changing it. I'd like to go out a little more peaceful fashion. But it's been an honor to serve. But I actually do go back and mention that, because it actually was a very formative decision that council made at that time. And it's been a pleasure to serve for these past 9 years, and with Ryan and with all the others. It's a delight. I'm thankful to live here, and thankful to be retired here. And so blessings on you all as you continue your work. And it's been a pleasure, been my distinct pleasure to work with you. Thank you. And with that, meeting adjourned.
Great. I did volunteer.